Good morning.
Good morning. How are y'all today? Thank y'all so much. Again, we have a full house. This was a very popular class. I am Angela Strickland, Special Events Director for Bellingrath Gardens and Home. Today I have Mr. Jack LeCroy with me. We have had Mr. Jack LeCroy before. He has done a pollinators class for us a couple of summers ago, and it was awesome. So we have him back. Jack is actually originally from Cinder, Alabama. That's in North Alabama. He attended Auburn University, War Eagle. He has bachelor's and his master's in horticulture from Auburn. He has worked in the University of Florida. He worked out in California. So he's just done a little bit of everything. So really excited to have him here today. I was just going to tell you a couple things before we get started. Next Tuesday, what some people call Fat Tuesday, is now become Bellingrath. We are having a golf cart parade on the Great Lawn at 2 p.m. and we would love to have y'all join us to catch some throws, some beads, some moon pies, and it'll be on the Great Lawn, so definitely we could spread out there. So that'll be Tuesday at 2 o'clock. We'll have some concessions out there, maybe some adult libations. It is Mardi Gras, you know. So y'all please join us for that if you have any questions. We're also getting ready. It's getting closer and closer. Bellingrath Beers and Blooms. That'll be Saturday, March 6th. It's going to be a craft beer festival and live music, vendors, food trucks, all on the Great Lawn. Of course, this year we will have a limited number of tickets sold. So that is to make it safe, to make everybody feel like there's plenty of room out there. So if you would like to attend, please let me know. Or you can go right on our website and get tickets, bellingrath.org. We're selling them through Eventbrite. They're $25, and that includes the tastings, the music. It's from noon to 6 p.m., so you can come and go as you please, walk the gardens, shop with vendors. We also have lunch today. Sticking with our Mardi Gras theme, we have jambalaya, a Creole cornbread, and Caesar salad. And then, if you can fit it all in, she does have bread pudding. Ooh, so good.
Y'all really came for the bread pudding.
So y'all stick around and have some lunch with us, but we'll let Mr. Jack LeCroy get started. Thank y'all.
So I'm usually loud enough where you can hear me without a microphone, but the mask kind of hinders that a little bit. So first of all, can everybody hear me? All right, everybody in the back, you're good? Okay. If you can't, let me know. I've also been told that I'm being recorded and I have to stay within a certain parameter. Okay, so I might need some of y'all to say, hey, get back over there. Because I'm a mover, I might be teaching back there or on that wall or something over there. So I'll need your help during the presentation for that as well. A couple of housekeeping things. You should have a survey on your table. This is how we know that we're doing our job and how we can tell Auburn and show Auburn, hey, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So we've got a couple of extra up here. If you don't have one at the end, if you would just take some time to fill that out. Just so that we can say, hey, we're out teaching in the community and you learned something. Okay? Everybody good with that? I do want to introduce Jacob. I'm going to get you to stand up for just a second. Jacob Kelly is our new our commercial horticulture agent. So he works with a lot of our growers in the area. Jacob, you're a month in? Yep. Right? So make sure that you go by and tell Jacob hi. Again, one thing too, thanks for braving the weather. We had lightning coming over here and I thought I was seeing things. So, but that is the day that we're in today. So thank y'all for braving the weather. So today we're going to be talking about Grow More, Give More, which is our kind of campaign that we started last year during the pandemic, but mostly we're going to be talking about vegetable gardening, okay? So who is going to be vegetable gardening in some form this year? Okay, who is absolutely terrified of vegetable gardening? Okay, that's totally fine. Hey, that's what we're here for, okay? And so as I kind of go through this, I want you to, in your mind, think of some things that you're going to want to grow. And hopefully as we work through some of these things, some of your questions might get answered. At the end, feel free to ask me any questions that you might have. And yes, we're going to cover some things about tomatoes today, okay? Because who all's growing tomatoes? Most of the room, right? Okay. So what we're going to do, if I can get my clicker to work, let's see. Well, I'm mashing buttons. It's not working. Jacob, I might need you to be my slide mover. No. You can hit the arrow for me. One thing that we have learned during this pandemic is to deal with technology issues. Has anybody ever had a Zoom call fail or anything like that?
Is it the...
Well, the clicker's not wanting to move it. One thing that I can go ahead and get you to do that we will kind of cover in a slide is I want you to write down 3 vegetables that you're wanting to grow, okay? And I'm going to get you to tell me some of those when we kind of get to that slide. But I want you to go ahead and just be thinking of 3. If you're not growing 3, write 1, write 2. Write down 1. And I want to get an idea of exactly kind of what everybody's kind of wanting to grow this year. Does everybody kind of have an idea of what you're wanting to grow? I'm going to see how, before we start, I'm going to see how far this cord will reach. The good thing is I have a long cord so I can kind of move around a little bit. Tell me some of the vegetables that you're wanting to grow if you raise your hand. See, I already got in trouble. I got to get back over here. Yes.
Sorrel.
Sorrel. Gotcha. Like the hibiscus? Sorrel? Or
Sorrel like the French lettuce.
oh, gotcha. Okay, perfect.
Ground cherries.
Okay, all right. Spinach, okay.
Merlotons.
Okay. What else?
Swiss chard.
Swiss chard, eggplant,
Asparagus.
asparagus. I have not heard tomatoes yet.
Just regular tomatoes.
I was about to say, I'm worried about y'all. I've got several tomato talks coming up, and I ain't gonna have nobody to show up.
Anything that'll live also if it gets some salt spray.
Anything that will live that will get salt spray. That's a good point, because where we live, depending on how close you are to the water, that's something that we have to think about. Again, great point there for growing really anything in our area. What else? Cucumbers. Do you have one?
Arugula.
Arugula.
Okra.
Say again.
Okra.
One more time.
Okra.
Okra. Okay, yes, that is a very popular one. Snap peas. Okay.
Potatoes.
Say again.
Potatoes.
Potatoes. One of the longest harvest times of like 140 days or something, and you just got to go out there and check on them every once in a while.
Pumpkin.
Pumpkin. That's a good one. We've got to think about pretty early about growing pumpkins. October is not the time to start thinking about growing pumpkins. I will tell you that. Peppers. Very good.
Don't know what.
An herb garden, yes. And we can kind of cover some of our herb stuff today as well, if you have some questions. Do I need to get my computer, you think?
Let's try this real quick.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Yep, that's working.
Okay, whatever you did.
I don't know.
I don't know what I could have, I don't know what I pushed, I don't know what happened.
All right, round of applause for our IT crew. Okay, so now that we've got an idea of exactly kind of what all you're wanting to grow, we're going to talk about kind of your garden. So why do you want to garden? Okay, there's a lot of different reasons why we want to put in a garden. So I want you to tell me some reasons too of why you want to garden, not just what, but the why. So raise your hand and tell me why you want to get out in the dirt.
Healthier food.
Healthier food.
Just love to garden.
Love to garden. I'm right there with you.
It tastes better.
It tastes better. Okay.
A little stress relief.
Stress relief. Thank you. There's nothing like pulling weeds, right? That's a stress reliever.
You can get it in your backyard without having to go to the grocery store.
There you go, right? And you can get away from certain people too out in the garden, right? Does anybody get out there because of that reason?
You don't have to wear your mask in the garden.
You don't have to wear your mask in the garden. That is a very, very, we never thought we would have to say that, would we? But here we are. Anybody else?
Fresh.
Fresh, right? So there's a lot of reasons why we might be out there. There's a lot of reasons why you might be here wanting to learn about vegetable gardening. So learning something new, that's huge. If I garden from now till the day that I die, I'm still going to be learning something new. This horticulture always keeps me on my toes. There's a new disease, there's a new pest, there's a new cultivar of a vegetable. I'm always learning something new when I'm out gardening. Saves money, okay? So if you do it the right way and do the research, okay, I've wasted money on plants that I shouldn't have been putting in the ground, okay? We all probably have done that. But one thing I want you to be mindful of is that that's what extension is here for. So we want to help you do the research beforehand to make sure that you do things correctly, okay? So I'm here to help you save time and money, all right? Food safety. So one thing when I go into the grocery store, sometimes you'll see these recalls, okay, of different things. And knowing that I can grow it in my backyard and pick it, there's a safety factor there, okay? And so that might be the reason why you're wanting to garden as well. And then reduce stress, okay? Sometimes if I can get my hand on a shovel and do a little bit of a workout, that's going to reduce some of that stress for me. And improve health. If we can eat a little bit more vegetables during our daily life, then that's always going to be a benefit for sure. So this is what a lot of my clients want, okay? So they want to buy a plant at the store, put it in the ground, not really check on it, and yet have a bountiful harvest, okay? Yes, if we lived in a perfect world, I would be able to put 4 rows of tomatoes, walk out 2 months later, and be able to just eat all of the tomatoes I wanted, okay? Unfortunately, that's not how it works, and I always like this comic. It says, I can never tell the plants from the weeds, and then it says, pull them up, and the ones that grow again are the weeds. Right? So, again, we have to be out in the garden working as well to make sure that we are doing everything we can for our vegetable garden. So, again, we've already done this activity. We've talked about it a little bit to kind of get an idea of what y'all are wanting to grow. I did want to show you a couple of pictures of some raised beds and some different garden beds to get your input on them, okay? So this picture of a raised garden, what do we think of this picture? Anybody?
Beautiful.
It's beautiful, right? Geometry, okay? Any pros or cons about this type of vegetable garden?
Not efficient.
Not efficient, right? So if you, these little corners right here, they're going to be only for certain plants, probably. What else?
It's expensive.
It's expensive, right? So putting that in, it can be expensive.
High maintenance.
High maintenance.
Space.
Waste of space. So again, One thing too that I like to show with this picture, if I'm out harvesting and I am putting whatever in here, and I want to reach over and grab and harvest from that side, what do I have to do? I have to walk all the way around, right? And so a lot of times too, we have to think about just when we are harvesting our plants, being able to reach as much as we can within one swath of our hand and not having to walk around in such a big area. Now, if we have a big, giant vegetable garden, then that's going to be another story. But something like this, they're going to have to move around to different places to harvest, okay? What about this picture?
It hurts my back.
It hurts my back. Now, this is a beautiful picture, right? But they probably have a team of 15 gardeners that come out there, and they probably have an edger right there that keeps those lines clean and keeps that grass from growing into that vegetable garden, okay? Again, a lot of times we see pictures like this and we want that, but we have to think about the maintenance side of it as well. Again, it's beautiful, but for 1 to 2 people to keep that up, that's going to be a lot of work. What about this? What's going on in this picture? Why is there so much wood? It's like a cage. Do what? Overwinter, or
Keeping deer out.
maybe keeping the deer and the rabbits out. Has anybody had some vegetables chewed on before? Right? So again, something to think about is pests in the garden. And to me, if I had the money, I would probably build something like this to keep all of the things out that I don't want in there, that's chewing on my greens or whatever. And so again, just another thing to keep in mind. You're going to have to deal with wildlife and different things that come in your vegetable garden as well. What about this? Probably a little expensive with the wood, right? But I like these beds because I could probably kneel right here and harvest a lot, that whole bed within one reach. Yep.
On those beds, do you recommend or don't recommend using any kind of treated lumber?
There has been research done, and I don't think, it's been a while since I've looked it up, I don't think there's been any showing of any of the treated wood hindering that vegetable. But I'll give you my contact information, and I will. I can send you some information on that for sure. What about this picture? This is a fun one. I want to see if people see what I see. Any problems with this picture?
Up and down and all around.
Can anybody tell anything about this corn in the back? So that's corn growing in the back, and one thing that a lot of people don't realize is corn's wind harvested, right? So a lot of times you have to plant rows of 3, and then if this is shaded at all, those plants are going to grow and they're going to get bigger, and there's going to be a lot of shading out of some of those plants. But 2, that 1 row of corn might not do great right there. Again, this picture right here, I like to show this because there's some buildings around. And again, we don't know exactly where this is located, but what could be a problem with that type of vegetable garden? Shade, right? So most of the vegetables that we grow need 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. I can go ahead and walk into your vegetable garden and see if shade is a problem or not, okay? So you have to make sure that the plants are getting enough sunlight. So what does a garden need? So it needs sun. We talked about that. It needs water, drip irrigation or water early in the morning, okay? Drip irrigation is best because of why? Can anybody tell me why we might want to use drip irrigation?
Minimizing the chances of spreading disease and stuff in your plants.
Right. So basically the roots just need the water, okay? Those leaves, they don't ever have to get wet. Again, Mother Nature here in one of the rainiest places in the United States, she does a really good job at that. But we can have a lot of bacterial and fungal problems on our vegetables. And so we really want to make sure to try to minimize that as much as possible. If we are watering our vegetable garden in the evening and letting it sit wet all night long, we're asking for problems. Okay, so if we do overhead irrigation We want to make sure it's early morning so those plants have time to dry off. Okay, does that make sense? So soil test. Has anybody ever came to our office on Schillinger Road and done a soil test before? I know some master gardeners in here. Y'all raise your hand high. So if you have not done a soil test, that is the most important part of this whole thing. So I equate a soil test as going to the doctor. And if I walk into a doctor's office, the doctor cannot look at me and say, you need vitamin A and you need vitamin D. Here's your receipt, and walk out the door, right? What are they going to do to test what nutrients I need? Blood test, right? This is the same premise as a blood test with a soil test. We need to know the pH. We need to know if you have too much phosphorus in your soil. We need to know if we need to add lime to change that pH. We need to know what your soil test says to then know what type of fertilizer you can use, okay? I get asked all the time, what kind of fertilizer can I put out in my garden? And I always ask a soil test because we have to know what's there already, okay? So that's one thing to make sure to do if you're wanting to grow your vegetables, is to do a soil test. So problems in South Alabama and in Mobile. What are the two biggest problems that we have in Mobile that would make vegetable gardening harder? Rain. Insects is one, but there's two above that, basically. So rain, about average 63 inches a year, which is very high. And then humidity, okay? When you walk outside and feel like you're still swimming, you know, that's humidity, right? And so what does bacteria and fungus absolutely love? Humidity and moisture, okay? And we get a lot of it. And so I have many clients that bring in samples throughout the entire year of these fungal and bacterial problems. And we've talked about how to lessen that a little bit as well. Mobile is not like the rest of Alabama, okay? We are down here on a little island in Mobile County. Please don't try to grow things that you see in a really nice gardening catalog in Birmingham or one in Huntsville, because some of that stuff's not going to work here, okay? So please be mindful of that. We have a completely different environment than the rest of Alabama. So when you do a soil test, this is going to be kind of what your soil test comes back and looks like. So it's going to list your crop of what you actually put on your soil test, your vegetables. It's going to show your soil group. Does everybody in here have the same type of soil? No, right? So it's going to look to see what type of soil you have. If you need to alter your pH, most of our plants like to grow in between our vegetable plants like to grow in between a 6 and a 6.5, okay? There's always outliers, but that's the majority. You're going to get your phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, and calcium recommendations there. And then on the end, it's going to show you your recommendations for each of those in your limestone. And then it's going to come back with recommendations at the bottom. So the good thing is when you get your soil test, you can call me and I can pull your soil test up on my computer and I can tell you what it means over the phone. Okay? So please use that. Feel free to stop me after and we can talk about a soil test. Fertilizer. I know that nobody in here has ever applied too much fertilizer. I know everybody in here always reads the label and they never double the amount of fertilizer because they think, well, if one does good enough, well, twice the amount's going to do even better. So fertilizer has to be applied correctly. Okay? The label's there for a reason, so make sure you pay attention to that. Keep fertilizer off of the plants. You want to mix it into the soil when you can, and then make sure certain types of fertilizer have had time to break down before applying. If we apply really, really fresh chicken manure, what can happen? It can burn the plant, okay? And then we think it's a disease. We'll go to a garden center, we'll buy a spray, and we'll spend money that we didn't need to spend, okay? This is a picture that I added in. I took this the other day because I was at a store, and again, today we hear a lot about organics, okay? And one thing I want to show you is, this is earthworm castings, okay? Who's heard of earthworm castings for your garden? Right? If I asked you what the nutrient content in earthworm castings is, could any of you tell me? So one thing with organics I want you to be mindful of, so this bag was about $8, okay? The nutrient content of the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, this has 1% nitrogen in it. 1%, okay? We usually talk about putting out sometimes in our vegetable garden like a 10-10-10 or a 13-13-13. We have to be really mindful about the nutrients that we are getting at the store, okay? We can always add this in as a amendment, but that nitrogen is going to have to be higher for some of our vegetable plants, okay? So again, paying attention to those numbers, the 3 numbers on a fertilizer bag is what? Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Those are the 3 main nutrients that we need for vegetables to grow, okay? So this was a really interesting picture because I'd much rather spend $8 and put it towards something that's got a higher nutrient content if I know that my soil test has said that I need it, okay? So this is right here. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I don't want you to all fall asleep. But this is what why pH is important. So if we look down here, if you see 6.5 to 7.0, basically these bands mean the availability of nutrients to the plant. The wider the band, the more nutrients that plant can take up, okay? So if you look in between 6.5 and 7, that's where the bands are the widest. If we start to get away from that pH at all, depending on what we're trying to grow, that plant might be having a hard time to take up nutrients, okay? So that's why pH is important. So types of gardening, we've got traditional, raised bed, and then in the ground. And so who has raised bed gardens in here? Okay, who has in-ground gardens? Okay, so a good mixture. Each has their pros and cons. So raised beds, that's really good if you're having to deal with possibly sandy soil or rocky soil. No cultivation equipment needed usually for that. And you can usually add in what you want to grow, which is usually pretty high in organic matter, which is what we want. In-ground tends to hold moisture better, which is always good. But the density of plants is not limited, possibly cutting down on diseases. So in our raised beds, if we put too many plants and they grow too close together, guess what can't happen after it rains? They can't really dry out well, okay? So they got to have good circulation, air circulation, to make sure that they dry out. If anybody has an old boat, you can use that as a raised bed, okay? I've seen many creative things for a raised bed. It doesn't have to be like the pictures I showed earlier. You can get just about as creative as you want to. Bathtubs. Anybody have a bathtub raised garden? Nobody? I'm sure some of you do. You just don't want to admit it. So one thing about vegetable gardens is you will have diseases. You will have pests. You will have problems. I cannot stand up here and tell you if you grow this tomato, you will never have a problem with it, okay? So you have to be mindful of doing the research beforehand. So disease control, one thing is resistant cultivars. So when I mean cultivars, has anybody ever heard of a Better Boy tomato? Or a celebrity tomato? Or all of these funny names that these vegetables have on it? Who's ever thought that the industry just names them to have fun with us? Anybody? So there is a reason why they are named that. They are usually resistant to certain diseases that they might get, which is good. Starting off with healthy disease-resistant plants, that's your number one go-to to make sure you have a productive garden, okay? Sanitation. I know that we don't want to get out there in 115-degree weather and clean up our gardens, but it's something that has to be done, okay? Any old leaves that fall or dead plants that lay around can just actually keep that disease in the soil, and it's just going to reinfect the next year, okay? So you want to get out and you want to clean your garden. Seed treatment, some seeds actually need some treatment. whether it be soaked in water or kind of other methods for the germination to be better. Who knew that if you soak okra seeds for 6 hours in water that the germination goes up? Anybody? So now if you grow okra from seed, soak them for 6 hours and then plant them and your germination will be a lot better. Okay? Planting site, if I put a garden in and my water source is on the other side of the house, I'm not going to be happy when it's 100 degrees having to go get water for it. Okay? Plant near a water source. All right? I will tell you, I've seen that more often than not where somebody didn't think about the water supply and they spent a lot of money on vegetables and then they realized they were going to have to lug 5 gallons of water every day. Okay? Then, if all this fails, then we can turn to chemicals. Most of my clients will come and say, I have a problem with my plant. What can I spray? All right, that's not where we start off, okay? And I'll show you why. But we've got to get out of the mindset that we start with chemicals first to fix a problem, okay? So tomato diseases, I like to throw up this just to scare you from growing tomatoes. No, I'm kidding. But tomatoes have a lot of problems. I heard one person say, it's like tomatoes want to die. Their purpose is to die. I was like, that's kind of funny because that sounds kind of accurate. But tomatoes get a lot of diseases. So you can have early blight, you can have cap facing, gray leaf spot, powdery mildew, septoral leaf spot, tomato spotted wilt, vercillium wilt, anthracnose. Do I have another slide? I might have listed more. Yeah, I did. Bacterial wilt, buckeye rot, fusarium wilt, damping off, southern blight. All of these are problems of tomatoes, okay? You have to do your research and get disease-resistant cultivars, okay, to make sure that you're going to be successful with your tomatoes, okay? Scouting, again, if you put your vegetable garden in and don't go back out there for 3 months, that's a problem, okay? You need to be out in your vegetable garden at least 2 to 3 times a week, okay? These insects, they take advantage of when you're not out in the garden. And you will go out there and you will have a plant that has been completely eat up in 2 days. Okay? So you've got to be out looking for these pests and diseases. And I'm not just talking about walking and just looking at it and saying hi and keeping on walking. Okay? We need to look under leaves. We need to look on the soil. We need to make sure there's not any problems going on. So this is your number one tool to stop a disease before it's too late. So get out in your garden, go and inspect your plants. If you don't know what something is, you can send me a picture. You can call the extension office and we'll get you an answer. By the time that we realize that the plant has a problem, it's usually too late. If the whole plant is wilted or all the leaves are eaten off, it's pretty much done deal, okay? And this is where we talk about IPM, Integrated Pest Management. And again, don't fall asleep on me, okay? But I'm not going to spend too much time here. But I like to equate this to the food pyramid of when we were in school. And it showed us what to eat, right? So what was on the bottom of that food pyramid? Starch. Fruit. What was that? Chocolate, right. So, I wish. So, our fruits and vegetables and all the good stuff are usually on the bottom. What's up here at the very top? That's the good stuff, but we can't eat it all the time, right? So that's your pastries and your chocolate and your candy. This is the same concept. If you do each of these methods first, you usually won't have to go to a chemical, okay? It is not flipped upside down to where we go to a chemical first, okay? So if we're sanitizing, if we're buying the correct plants, if we're making sure to not put an insecticide that kills 300 insects at a time out, okay, that's going to help us in our garden. So crop rotation is big again. Anybody rotate their crops? Good, I see some hands going up. So this prevents any soil-borne diseases from building up in our soil, okay? If I plant tomatoes in the same place every single year, those tomatoes every single year will start to decline, okay? That's because we're not rotating our crop. So prevent or reduce the buildup of soil-borne plant pathogens. It enhances the soil quality, increases soil fertility, and aids in pest management. So how do you know what to rotate with? Okay, so and you can find this on the internet. This is just vegetable families. Okay, so who knew that? Let me find it. The Solanaceae family is potatoes, eggplant, tomatoes, and peppers. So every year I need to move my tomatoes and peppers to a different part in the garden. Okay, I can go back in with pumpkin, squash, watermelon, cucumber because they're in the gourd family. Okay, but we have to make sure and rotate our vegetables by families. So those pests, when they lay their eggs and they wake up and they know that that tomato plant's going to be there every year and it's going to get eaten up every year, we have to kind of trick them, okay, and move their food source as well. So it helps with diseases and it helps with insect problems. So insect control, delaying applications until pest populations become too large or damage is too advanced. This is when I get calls. My tomato plant has been eaten up. What do? There's not a lot you can do. Okay, it's been eaten up. You got to be out there looking because once an insect gets to an adult stage, it becomes harder to treat even with an insecticide. Okay, poor coverage caused by insufficient volume, inadequate pressure, or clogged or poorly arranged nozzles can be another thing if we're out spraying. And then selecting the wrong pesticide to target pests. If I have a vegetable garden and I am putting out an insecticide that is not labeled for a vegetable garden, then I don't want to use that, okay? I had a couple come in when I was working at the University of Florida, and the wife was mad at the husband, all right? And the wife said, I know he's not supposed to be using this in our vegetable garden. And I said, okay, let's look and see what's going on. She came out the victor by this, by the way. He was using a termiticide in his vegetable garden. Just because it kills insects doesn't mean that we can possibly consume it, okay? So one thing is termiticides, what's that used to kill? Termites around our house, okay? So a lot of times it has to be labeled for that specific vegetable garden, but then we have to know how many days to wait then we can consume it, okay? All of that information is listed on the label, but please don't use a termiticide in your vegetable garden, okay? Because I want you to be able to walk away and consume your vegetables safely. So when I talk about a pesticide half-life, that's basically the life that it takes in the soil to start to degrade. Again, all this information is listed on the label, but a half-life is the time that it takes for a certain amount of the pesticide to be reduced by half. It will tell you days to harvest of what you spray, when it will be safe to then pick that vegetable and consume it. Okay? Each pesticide can have many half-lives depending on conditions in the environment. Make sure they're marked for vegetable gardens and read the label. Okay? Again, I can get you any of this information you see today. I can get this to you. This is a chart, and it's actually some of our organic pesticides that are safer to use. They're listed at the top, things like neem, spinosad, BT, carbaryl, malathion, and it actually lists the insect that they help control. Okay? So if you look, neem oil helps control aphids and cucumber beetle. If I put neem oil out for a corn earworm every day, it's not going to do one thing. Okay? If I can go and spend $50 on neem oil, and you have to put it on the correct insect. So what do we do when we find an insect? It has to be identified. We have to know what is eating on your plant to then be able to control it. Okay? So neem oil, and a lot of times too, I don't want you to be nervous of some of these different things because I'm going to go over some safer options for you today. Just because they have a big name usually doesn't mean that they're dangerous. Okay? So neem oil actually comes from a neem tree. Greatest concentrations of these substances are found in the seed. And I never can say that, but that's the active chemical that's in that. as a duractin, I did pretty good then, can act as a feeding deterrent against a number of insect pests, including beetles. More than 60 insect pests may be affected by this, okay? Spinosad, this insecticide has extremely low toxicity to mammals. Spinosad is a new microbial insecticide that is derived from a bacteria species that's found in nature. It is a fermented product, but much more like Bacillus thuringiensis. Anybody ever used BT or Bacillus thuringiensis in their garden? We're going to cover that. You're going to need to go buy some, okay? It will also move through the leaf cuticle to reach leaf miner larvae. BT. Anybody ever had problems with worms in their vegetable garden? Raise your hand. Well, you need BT, okay? So BT is a fungus that's found in nature. It's naturally occurring. The caterpillar does actually have to eat the spores of the BT, but this is a safer option for you if you have problems with worms in your garden, okay? Bacillus thuringiensis can be found almost everywhere in the world, okay? It's a fungus that's found in nature. Basically what happens is the toxins paralyze and destroy the cells of the gut wall in the worms, basically not allowing it to eat anymore, okay? So we're going to play a little game right quick, okay? So does everybody think that all bugs are bad? Anybody? Don't raise your hand. So again, when we're in our garden, I know that we might find a spider, and I know that we want to kill it, okay? I know that we might find some other insects and we want to kill it, but not all insects are bad, okay? So, anybody know what this is? There you go, a green lacewing. Is it good or is it bad?
Good.
It is good. They actually eat some of our aphids that get on our plants, okay? So again, if this guy's floating around, I like to just help him out, make sure he's got some food, make sure he's got some water, make sure I'm being nice to him, so he stays in my garden, okay? If I put something out that kills 300 insects that might kill him, if we kill all of the bad bugs in our garden, what happens in our garden? We have an explosion of the bad bugs, because guess what? These guys are in the vegetable garden helping control some of those problem plant or insects. Anybody know what this guy is? This is an assassin bug. Is he good or is he bad? And with a name like that, what are we could be on the fence, right? So this guy's a good bug, okay? He'll actually eat some of the beetles and worms that we find in our garden as well, okay? What are these? Aphids. Everybody knows aphids, right? These are the ones that like to hide under the leaf, and then we finally turn it over and there's like a million. And we're like, where were you at this whole time? So these are aphids. These are basically suck the juices out of our plant, and they like to hide, and so they're really hard to see, but we have some controls for them. We've already talked about some of that. They are aphids. They are bad. Okay. Anybody know this guy? Very good. Somebody knows their insects in here. Is it good or bad? Or you've just had to kill so many of them, right? So that is bad. Again, knowing the insect and then knowing if it's got a plant name attached to it, we might want to look into that, okay? Because it could be that it was found on that plant, or just really likes to munch on that plant, okay? What about this one? Is it good or is it bad? He's got spikes. He's got thorns on him. So probably we might want to kill him if he's in our vegetable garden. This is a ladybug larva. So this is what the instar stage of a ladybug before adult, before the nice pretty ladybug that we're used to. This is what we see. A lot of people think this is a bad bug. The ladybug larva actually eats these guys. Okay, so I want to keep those in my garden. all right? I want to make sure they're just as happy as they can possibly be, okay? So again, looks are not always what we need to pay attention to, but I would want to identify that first to make sure I knew what it was and if it was good or bad, okay? What about this one? This is always a fun one. So it kind of looks like bird poop. We might find it on our citrus tree. So this is a citrus orange dog caterpillar. Okay? If you ever see something that looks like bird poop, it could possibly be bird poop. But it could be this caterpillar that likes to chew on some of the leaves, but we also get a beautiful swallowtail butterfly out of it as well. Okay? Which in turn is going to be a pollinator. So again, looks are not always what we have to pay attention to. Anybody have any idea of what's going on in this picture? So this is I'm pretty sure it's a tomato hornworm. If you've ever had tomato hornworm on your tomatoes, you know that they're very aggressive and they look like they'll jump on you. But this is actually a tomato hornworm that has been parasitized by a parasitic wasp. And these are the eggs of the parasitic wasp that is slowly feeding on that tomato hornworm. I want every single one of those parasitic wasps to be able to live and have a happy life in my garden, okay? So what I usually do is, if I see them, I lightly pick the caterpillar off and I put him way over there, not anywhere near my garden, okay? But I want those wasps to be able to grow, okay? So again, seeing that, I would not want to kill all those parasitic wasps in my garden. So how to pick plants, we've talked about cultivar, we've talked about kind of why they are, have the names and different things. It could be size, color, disease resistant, taste. There are 15,000 known varieties of tomatoes. If you've ever looked through a seed catalog and gotten completely overwhelmed, which I have before, okay, just the tomatoes alone can be overwhelming. So I need you to know all the names of those tomatoes, they're named for a reason, okay? So I went and took these pictures at a local nursery, and just to show you what the tag looks like. So this is a big boy hybrid tomato, of course. On the back, it's got light, full sun, it's got spacing, it's got plant depth, it's got pretty much all the information you need, okay? Here's Husky Cherry Red, hybrid cherry tomato. It's got full sun, it's got spacing, it's got plant depth, but on the top, it's got disease resistant, and then it's got the letter V and the letter F. What in the world does that mean? Right? So if I didn't know any better, I wouldn't know what that meant, okay? Here's one for Bush Goliath. There's disease resistance VFN, okay? That's got one more letter. That's got to be better, right? Full sun, spacing, it's got all the information that you need, okay? I'm going to go and show you this right quick and go back. So this is the breakdown of what all those letters mean. So if it's got N, it's resistant to nematodes. If it's got F, fusarium wilt. V, verticillium wilt. ASC, alternaria stem canker. TMV, tobacco mosaic virus. ST, gray leaf spot. SWV, tomato spotted wilt virus. And LB, late blight. So if I grow tomatoes and I've had a certain problem before, I can usually find a tomato that's resistant to that problem, hopefully. One thing about tomatoes too is there are determinate tomatoes and indeterminate. So determinate varieties are what they call the bush varieties. So they reach a certain plant height and then stop growing. The majority of their fruit matures within a month or two and appears at the end of branches. Most people grow the indeterminate, which needs staking, but varieties continue to grow and produce tomatoes all year long, and the stems throughout the growing season. Indeterminate plants need extra tall supports, kind of like with the tomato cages. So even with determinate and indeterminate, we want to make sure we know which ones we're growing. One thing I want you to take away from this talk, the biggest lie that we tell ourselves as gardeners is, I'll remember what that plant was named. I'll remember when I put that plant in the ground. Anybody ever lied to themselves and told them that? Because I have. One thing I want you to leave with is have a notebook, have something where you put those tags in, have something where you make notes seasonally of plant pests that happen, because if they happened last year in June, what's probably going to happen this next year in June? That same problem is probably going to pop up, okay? So it doesn't have to be anything fancy, all right, but have something that you put that information in. Identify when pests arrive, harvest dates, when disease started, overall plant yield, how cultivars did in your garden, and nutrition deficiencies, okay? This is a very, very advanced kind of gardening calendar, but one thing you need to know is when plants are put in the ground and then how many days to harvest, okay? Again, if you have a good enough mind to remember 5 vegetable types and remember that I harvest this one at 30 days, this one at 45, this one at 65, then you're ahead of me. So, but for me, I have to create something where I can look back and say, okay, I can harvest during this time, and then I can go back and plant something, okay? So again, a lot of people get really crazy with a lot of this, but they usually have the month listed at the top and then what they're growing on the side. So they're growing basically everything in this calendar. But size of vegetables. If we let some of our vegetables get too big, they're not really good anymore, okay? The taste kind of starts to go away. So that harvest date is really, really important. If you want to grow a pumpkin that big, please invite me over because I'd love to take my picture with it, okay? Letting vegetables go past harvest can diminish taste, take nutrients away, and more time for a vegetable to become infected with diseases or have pest injury, okay? I always tell people that even if it's a small wildflower patch, something to attract pollinators to my garden, okay? A lot of our vegetables need pollination. So if I'm planting a row of sunflowers in the back or a thing of cosmos or some zinnias, anything to attract those pollinators that will then come to my vegetable garden, that's always going to be a benefit, okay? So again, zinnias, cosmos, sunflowers, just putting out some of that around your garden is going to help with pollination, okay? So quiz. So question 1, my young vegetable plants are dying. What do I do? What could possibly be wrong? Has anybody's young vegetable plants just croaked before? A lot of people's do, okay? These are some common questions that I get from homeowners about their vegetable garden. So you could have fertilizer burned it, okay? You could have put out too much fertilizer, or you could have some soil-borne diseases because you didn't rotate your crops, okay? So again, doing some things ahead of time to mitigate some of these problems is going to be big. Question 2, my plants are wilting. What's wrong? Any ideas? Water could be one. Anything else? Dry soil. That's a big reason why plants wilt. I'll go ahead and tell you. Okay. Excess soil moisture. So do you know that if you put out too much soil moisture, they will look like they are wilting? Okay. And then diseases will make some of our plants look like they are wilting. So again, we need to be able to distinguish which problem is which. Question 3, my plants never produced. What happened? Improper temperatures. One thing you need to know about tomatoes, if we have in the spring one night at 40 degrees and then one day at 80 and the temperature keeps fluctuating, that messes with fruiting of tomatoes. It is not a disease. We don't have to spray anything. We just have to tell Mother Nature, please get your act together so we can have consistent temperatures, okay? But if we plant tomatoes too early, we can run into this problem of the plants never producing, okay? Too much nitrogen. What does nitrogen help the plant with? What kind of growth? Leaves. So if I'm putting out a lot of nitrogen, you're going to have the most beautiful green tomato plants you've ever had in your life, but guess what it's not going to produce? Tomatoes, okay? So too much nitrogen can be a problem, and then insects can be a problem as well. The leaves on my tomato plants are turning purple. What is going on? Any ideas? So this is lack of phosphorus. So we don't have to go to the store and spray anything. We just need to do a soil test and make sure there's adequate phosphorus in the soil already to make sure that the plant has enough nutrients that it needs. Okay? So the give more part, so we want to report what you give. Okay? We have like a 3-question survey that you can take. Did anybody give away peppers or anything last year? We want you just to take a quick survey and make sure that people are giving away some of their harvest. This past year and the time we're in now, it's been very, very difficult, and we've seen through the extension service that people are kind of going back to the World War II kind of victory gardens, right? Everybody's been out in their gardens growing. We want you to report that. We want to, even if it's 3 peppers, we want you to say, hey, I gave 3 peppers to my neighbor. Because we want to promote you giving away some of your produce that you're not able to use. So we do have a survey. If you go to aces.edu, ACES, and type in Grow More, Give More, we have a whole section on the videos, and I'll show you that in a minute, but there's also a survey. Please take that during the growing season. I don't care if you give 1 bell pepper away, okay? And basically, it's how many pounds of vegetables did you give? Did you use resources, some of our resources that we have? And then you enter your zip code. That's it, okay? And we have created a lot of videos for you for the growing season. And so if you go to aces.edu and go to Grow More, Give More, we have gardening in containers, raised bed gardening, building a raised bed, soil test, planting a raised bed, garden location. We have a inventory list of 5-gallon bucket gardening, okay? This is not all the videos we have. We have about probably 80, 90 videos maybe. But we have them all listed, and you can actually go and watch the one that you want to learn more about, okay? So hopefully this is going to help you with your vegetable gardening this year. Again, we do have a Facebook page, so it's Mobile County Extension ACES, ACES. We put a lot of our classes and stuff up there. I have a lawn school coming up at the end of the month. And so, try to stay as informed as you can. Get on our newsletter, and we can definitely help you with, whatever we can help you with. So that's it. I think, did I make it to 1 minute? That's pretty good.